This is our last film at Deadline Film Contenders 2024. Look at you all. You stayed. Thank you so much. Thank you. Hug. Let's hug. This film comes from director-writer Shira Piven, who finally got to make what was a passion project for her mother. It's called The Performance, and it's based on a New Yorker article written by Pulitzer Prize winner Arthur Miller. The Performance tells the story of Harold May, an American Jewish tap dancer. After struggling in the States, Harold gets the opportunity of a lifetime in pre-World War II Europe to continually perform for a rapturous audience and make a lot of cash. One problem: that audience is the Nazis and the Fuhrer himself. Starring as Harold May is Shira Piven's brother, who you know is three-time Primetime Emmy winner from Entourage, Mr. Jeremy Piven. Let's take a look at this awesome movie.
Are you Herr May?
Yeah. Is there a problem?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I am Damian Vogler. Your performance was extraordinary.
Oh, thank you.
May I steal a small moment of your time?
Oh no, I'm gonna go catch up with my crew.
I'll only be a moment.
But sure. Okay. Yeah. No, thank you. Am I in some sort of trouble?
But that will depend. Are you a communist?
No.
Spy?
Not that I know of.
Not that I know of. That's a good one, Herr May.
Thank you.
Tell you what.
Yeah.
Lend me a smoke, and I won't report you.
You got a deal.
I first saw you in Vienna. I've attended 3 of your performances, in fact. And I must say you are a true artist.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a living.
Baking bread is a living. But I suppose even Johann Sebastian saw himself this way. Such is the curse of the great man.
Yeah?
I used to dabble as a performer myself, you know.
Really?
Stuttgart Opera.
It's fantastic. What were you, bass? Tenor?
Spearcarrier. Now that was a living. But it was still the opera. Singers, dancers, mans of the stage. And the Fräuleins love mans of the stage, no?
No. I mean, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's welcome our guests, the screenwriter of The Performance, Joshua Salzberg. Director and writer of The Performance, Shira Piven. And star and producer, Jeremy Piven. So, Jeremy and Shira, tell us about how Mom got the article, and then just the whole passion for this, the whole family passion for this.
Arthur Miller, great American playwright, married to Marilyn Monroe at one point, death of a salesman. Anyway, my mother is a theater artist, director, actress, and loves reading, and she has stacks of The New Yorker in her apartment. And so she read this story in The New Yorker years ago, maybe, I think it was published in 2002, and she sent it to Jeremy first, and she said, "This is a role for you."
Yeah, and I was blown away by it and didn't for a moment think, and my mom's not very frivolous. She runs lines with me to this day and was and is my acting teacher. Gives me notes to this day. And my father is no longer with us, and he's still giving me notes, which is amazing. So, you know, actors are very delusional. That's our superpower. And I read this role and immediately thought it would be incredible to play this. Arthur Miller is so incredible, and it also just reveals so perfectly the absurdity of anti-Semitism in this beautiful way, in this story that's so beautiful. And I didn't for a moment think, well, I don't tap dance. I can't play this role. So this was 15 years ago, and I've been trying to get the money to produce it ever since, and it took me 15 years to make this film. And each year that we couldn't find the money, I got better at tap until I was ready to perform it. So divine timing. Yeah, absolutely.
And then, well, I don't want to reveal the ending, but you were also, you went all in. You went all in. There wasn't a stunt man at first until there was.
Yeah, there was a stuntman, and I was the producer of this film, but I forgot that I was the producer at times, which is tragic. But when you've been an actor your whole life, you know, it's hard to get that perspective. And Shira came and said to me, you know, you have, you know, this.
You have the rest of your life, and you have one more major tap number. So just maybe think about this a minute before you jump in.
And I did put my producer hat on for that moment and thought, well, we got to keep it moving. So I told my stuntman, who looked just like me if I was younger and better looking and stronger, that to stand down. And then I did the stunt myself, and you know, I only know one way to do it, which is to throw myself in completely. And I broke 8 ribs while I was doing this stunt, and yeah, and it's in the film. You know, we got one take, and we did it. We did it.
Yeah, it sounded.
Yeah, we were watching at the monitors going, wow, he's really going for it in this take.
It's his best work.
Yeah, there you go. And then the camera got close, and we heard the cut, and we knew something was wrong.
Yeah, I've never said cut in my life.
Tell us about, you had to go to Rebecca Miller to get permission for that.
Yeah, I went to Rebecca Miller, Arthur Miller's daughter, who's a very brilliant playwright, and I mean, screenwriter and director, and in her own right. And I went to her to, you know, to pitch us and myself to obtain the rights. And her husband, who's this viciously mediocre actor named Daniel Day-Lewis, he was in the background cueing her on what questions. It was the most intimidating phone call I have ever had in my life. And I don't even know, I don't even know how it happened, but somehow I got the rights. And every year they would, you know, kind of go, really? You know, people just didn't want us to give up, but after a decade, you know, it feels like, what are you doing? And for some reason, I'm compelled to tell people, if you've got that project that you've always wanted to do, don't give up. Please don't give up.
And Shara, what pulled it forward? What finally got it across the finish line?
Good question. Is it
like-
across the finish line?
Like
Yeah,
across the finish line.
Sorry.
Like, was there a key producer or finance?
Yeah, Daniel Finkelman came on board, and he was kind of our angel, because it was a bit of raw passion like we had. He just fell in love with the story. He believed in the movie. He believed in Jeremy. The thing about indie films is it will take you down if you don't keep going, if you don't keep getting up when you're knocked down. And it's the nature of the beast. And it can take it can take years and years. Josh and I we worked together on my last film, Welcome to Me. Josh was editing, and I knew was not only also a writer, but that was his true passion. And I said, let's adapt this Arthur Miller story. And so we started writing it, I don't know, 8-9 years ago. And Daniel Finkelman came on board 3.5 years ago, maybe, and he just believed in it, and it just kept us going.
Now, Josh, the character Damien Fugler, played by Robert Carlyle, who hires Harold May, there's some sort of connection that you have
Yeah, I mean, I don't love the idea that we're saying I'm connected to the Nazi character in the movie, but don't make that the headline.
No,
like,
I'm
writer
not. I'm
connected
not.
to
I'm not.
Nazis.
But
Okay.
I understand there's
Yes.
some sort of.
No, I mean, that's what struck me about the Arthur Miller short story, the relationship between Jeremy's character Harold and Robert Carlyle's character Fugler, who we saw in that scene. There's a kinship and a friendship, and Fugler, he's this cultural attaché. He's not. He rationalizes that he's not in the military, he's not in politics, he's not that guy, and yet he's close to it all. And he really wants to be close to artists, to performers, kind of like a producer in that way. I want to work in this town, so I won't make too many connections there. But that connection that they had and this friendship that in any other circumstance would have been a friendship, and yet in this circumstance, it pits them on opposite sides of what will be a war, that's coming. And that's really what I saw in Arthur Miller's work, was his ability to turn this guy not into a monster, but a human that does monstrous things.
You know something, Sharon, Josh, the intensity of this film, it's like we're always sitting at the edge of our seats wondering, okay, is this it? Is Harold going to get discovered about who he really is? Can you talk about that? Was that a pace you found in the editing room? Was that always on the page?
It's been really interesting screening the movie lately because people talk about that, and they talk about this feeling in their stomach when they watch it. And for me, it reminds me. I think we talked about this last time, that the thing that came to mind was I studied for 1 year in New York with Uta Hagen when I was acting in my 20s. And what I remember from her as a teacher, the great acting teacher, Uta Hagen, what I remember is the idea of stakes. That was maybe her main note that she would give to every single scene is what are the stakes and how did you get to those stakes? And so for me, it was important to seed that in the writing, and also because this period is just morally, we go back to it over and over again in storytelling because it gives us these clear moral imperatives. It's very clear, and I feel like things now are so ambiguous and so tricky. And when we go back to that period, it helps us, for me, it helps to see today through that lens, the way that we otherize people. But the stakes in Harold's case, because we know what was coming, it was easy to just always make sure they were the highest possible stakes. And I think the pace came from there. And also our fantastic lead editor, Jessica Hernandez, has this kinetic energy to her editing, and I loved working with her and chose her because of her editing style.
In the show numbers, the choreographer,
Jared Grimes is astounding, and yeah, he recently was doing Funny Girl on Broadway as a performer, nominated for a Tony, and he not only is a first-rate tap choreographer, but he understands that particular period as well.
How does it feel to have finally completed this film?
Wow, it happened maybe just the other day. So you're saying where is the finish line? It'll sound very grandiose, but it's a miracle. This whole thing is a miracle. Getting an indie film that is a period piece when everyone says no, you can't do it. To get it made and to have it be something that I'm so proud of. It's heavy. It's heavy. And you talk about stakes, like I'm playing opposite. Did you guys even know that was Robert Carlyle up there in that scene? He disappears into this role so brilliantly, and he's so charming, charismatic, whimsical, and terrifying, ultimately. And to play opposite that, and he's in a real Nazi uniform. These are words, Bratislava, Slovakia filming, and with all the stakes, everything that they wrote, his performance, everything is so real. It's the stakes were just there at every moment. And if I couldn't step up and be present and play off that, I need to go into roofing, and immediately, literally.
No, the chemistry was kind of phenomenal. Like Josh and I both remember to actually tearing up at the monitor the day that Robert Carlyle, that the two of them had that particular scene, because it took so long to cast that role and to get to that moment. And then the two of them together, I watched Jeremy, everything sort of fell away, and they both kind of, the relationship almost arrived. Like as coming from theater, I want to rehearse it, and they just stepped into that moment, and the chemistry between them was really so palpable and human.
But it was all on the page, and so you live to be able to perform those words and those stakes, and then to play opposite an actor like that, that's something devoutly to be wished for, definitely. And people are like, isn't it weird being directed by your sister? And it's like, no, not at all. It feels completely natural. I mean that. I know you guys, there are a lot of people like, I couldn't take direction from my sibling. I would kill them. But there was never that,
It's because we grew up in the theater with our parents and directing and acting with our parents, which is very weird, but so it felt natural for us.
Yeah, we were on shorthand.
I only had to break up a few fights on set. Sure, it has a mean right hook. It was, yeah.
It's the first sister director, brother actor, the opposite of the Coppolas, Francis and Talia. But I would say you're the first sister filmmaker and brother actor.
Not the Gyllenhaals?
The Gyllenhaals, oh my God, okay. All right, yeah, that's my bad.
Sorry.
But are there more stories that the two of you have?
Endless. We were just talking about one. There's so many different, at these events, which are so fun and great to be around this community, and you run into these artists, and John Baptista, right? You run into these, what a genius. And you see that guy, and you just immediately go like, how do I work with him? Let's start pitching some ideas to this dude. Okay, and Jared Grimes, who's our choreographer and our brilliant tap dancer, who was my tap teacher, we start just pitching ideas, immediately. And I'll let them talk about ideas, but that's what's so great. Like this is my first time producing. I'm 200 years old, 80 movies into the game, and this is, my first time producing. I could literally do a TED Talk or a documentary or a book on what not to do, if you guys ever want to know what not to do. No, but I've learned so much from this process that I can't wait to do it again.
But it's ultimately all in the story, going back to Arthur Miller. And he wrote this, here you have a Nazi and a Jew in front of you. And, we sort of gave the story away in the beginning, but what happens after we see Harold and his troupe dancing in front of a Nazi audience, there's another half of the film to go. And that's, in a way, there's a lot of fun to be had in that, and pain to be had in the rest of the film. But Arthur Miller created this wonderful story, and I think we built on that relationship. But ultimately, it has to be a metaphor. You see a Nazi and a Jew standing in front of you, and you see a Nazi and a Jew. But because it's a film, and because we're human beings, we feel the metaphor. It could be any oppressor and oppressed. And if we only see this as a Jewish story, which it resonates with Jewish audiences deeply, but it's a larger story. And I feel like there are lessons from this era that, as I said, we keep going back to, that we have to begin to see in a new light, that we have to see in a larger sense.
Yeah, I think this film, at its core, there's so many different things to be taken from it that we can all relate to. One of them is, how much of yourself will you compromise in this life to be successful? And in Harold May's case, my character, he's willing to risk it all and hide his identity to become successful. And can art override hate? There's a lot of different themes that I think we can all relate to in a film like this.
The Performance. Shara Piven, Josh Salzberg, Jeremy
Thank you.
Piven.
Yeah.